Let's welcome the Bitcoin Jesus, Raja Lova. Welcome to the stage.
Thank you all for coming. What an amazing turnout here in Hong Kong. And what an amazing lineup of speeches that we've already heard, and I'm sure there's lots more good ones to come. So I think everybody here probably already know what Bitcoin is. But Jihan made some excellent points in his presentation that it's the social code and the underlying economic code of Bitcoin that makes Bitcoin what it is. And it's the software code that is just used to implement that economic code. And maybe I need a remote that works. I'll be right back. Can I have a remote that works, please? No, not working. Here we go. There we go. We have one that works now. So, straight from the Satoshi Nakamoto white paper itself, Bitcoin is a peer-to-peer electronic cash system. It's right there in the title. It's a peer-to-peer electronic cash system. If it's a cash system, it should work similarly to cash. So here's the underlying economic code of not just Bitcoin, but of all money. These characteristics are what make something money. And so, easy to store, hard to counterfeit, scarce, divisible, homogeneous, durable, easy to transport. Bitcoin was pretty much all of those things from day one. And for the first 8 years of Bitcoin, it had those characteristics, and it grew incredibly quickly. And it grew to where people all over the world were incredibly excited about it and started using it in their businesses and started using it in their daily lives. Until about a year ago, the blocks became full, and that damaged the easy to transport aspect of Bitcoin. It made it so Bitcoin transactions became expensive, they became slow, they became unreliable. And that damages Bitcoin's characteristics as money. And so that's a very, very important characteristic that in Bitcoin has been damaged at this point. And we can see that happening right here. So I got involved back in Bitcoin in February of 2011. And people were warning and warning and warning. And in those days, it was inconceivable that the block size wouldn't be raised if Bitcoin ever became popular enough to where the blocks would be full. It wasn't even something that people were concerned about at all. But then later on, people decided that somehow it would be a good idea to have that be the case. And we can see right here that today the blocks are completely full just about all the time. And we can see that the average confirmation time for a Bitcoin transaction to be included in the next block went from minutes to several hours, and sometimes days if you're unlucky with your transaction. That's a really, really big problem for anybody who wants to use Bitcoin as money. And we can see the transaction fees here. The entire time, the entire history of Bitcoin for 8 years, the fees were very, very, very low. It was, pennies or just a fraction of a penny to send or receive Bitcoin with somebody. Just recently, in one single day, people paid more than $2 million in network fees to use the Bitcoin network. That's $2 million worth of incentive that's motivating people to use something other than Bitcoin. And we can see exactly what happened here. We had years and years and years of warning where people were worried about the blocks becoming full. And when blocks become full, the user experience degrades and Bitcoin loses its characteristics as money. And then we can see exactly what happened when the blocks did become full. And Bitcoin's share of the overall cryptocurrency market cap plummeted as a direct result, because if Bitcoin is less useful as money, people are not going to save it and use it as money. And so in economics, there's a concept called substitute goods. And basically the idea is that if two goods can be used for the same purpose, if the price of one good increases, the demand for substitutes is likely to rise. So you can think of that in your own daily life. If there's two brands of tea, and suddenly if you're a tea drinker, if one of those brands of tea becomes much more expensive, you're going to start drinking more of the other brand of tea. And the exact same thing is true of cryptocurrencies. If it becomes much more expensive, not just in terms of fees, but in terms of time and effort and inconvenience to use a particular cryptocurrency, people are going to start using a different one. And we've seen that happen exactly here. At the exact same time that Bitcoin's market share declined, all the coins have just skyrocketed in popularity. And that's basic economics. When something is more useful than another similar good, people will start using the other one. And this is where the problem came from. It came from a group of people calling themselves Bitcoin Core and Blockstream. And they've openly advocated for 1 megabyte of blocks to intentionally create high fees and slow confirmations. They openly say that they want the fees to be high and they want the confirmations to be slow. And anybody with any sort of economic understanding realizes that you want the fees to be low and the transactions to be fast if you want people to use something. And so you might not believe that anybody would ever want the fees to be high and the confirmations to be slow, but I put together a whole bunch of quotes from those people that we'll get to next. But high fees and slow confirmations will result in fewer users, fewer nodes, lower adoption, and a lower Bitcoin market cap. And if you want to see more and more people around the world using Bitcoin, you should want the opposite of all these things. And so here's a quote from Greg Maxwell, the CTO of Blockstream himself. And he says, "Fee pressure is an intentional part of the system design, and to the best of the current understanding, essential for the system's long-term survival." So yes, it's good. Well, I disagree. And I disagree wholeheartedly. And I've been around in Bitcoin since very, very early times. Fee pressure was never an intentional part of the system. It was just an anti-spam measure. And certainly nobody ever intended in the early days to have Bitcoin transactions cost tens or hundreds or even I hear some of these people openly claim that Bitcoin transactions should cost $1,000 per transaction. That's absolute nonsense. And so here's another quote from Mark Zuckerberg. "Slow confirmation, high fees will be the norm in any safe outcome." Well, if you think about it, Bitcoin's been around for, 9 years now? For the first 8 years, Bitcoin had fast confirmations and low fees. And it was very safe and easy to use. So, Greg Maxwell again here. There's a consistent fee backlog, which is the required criteria for stability. Well, we have an 8-year track record in which that was not the case, and Bitcoin worked fantastic. Had tons of merchant adoption, tons of wallets, tons of people all over the world starting to use it. And so here we have another quote that says, "I don't think that transaction fees mattering is a failing, it's a success." And maybe it's hard to read the text here, but on the left here, we have the transaction fees per day skyrocketing, and we have Bitcoin's share of the overall cryptocurrency market space plummeting at the same time. So that's a direct result of the high fees on Bitcoin. And here we have a quote saying there's nothing wrong with full blocks. Well, obviously there's a lot wrong with full blocks. We have them again saying full blocks is the natural state of the system. That's again nonsense. For the first 8 years of Bitcoin, the blocks were never ever full. And that's when we saw Bitcoin having this just wave of adoption all over the world with merchants and businesses and people in every country starting to use it. And so here we have Peter Whaley saying, "We as a community should indeed let a fee market develop, and rather sooner than later." And we've seen the direct result of that fee market developing sooner rather than later. The direct result has been Bitcoin's share of the overall cryptocurrency ecosystem plummeting. And Luke Jr. is saying, just pay a $5 fee, it'll go through every time unless you're doing something stupid. Well, the fees have been as high as $10 for the average fee recently. And if you're running any sort of business that's receiving lots of payments from customers, when you go to move them out, $100 fees or several $100 fees have been common on the Bitcoin network. That's motivation for people to start using something other than Bitcoin. And I don't know what universe Luke is living in, but he says reasonable block sizes currently range from half a megabyte to 1 megabyte. He also says this is no longer going to keep fees low. Well, if you restrict the supply of block space and people want to use it, then yeah, the fees will rise. But there's a simple solution to that. George Timon says confirmation times are fine for those who pay high fees. Well, as Jihan mentioned, this is an incredibly competitive market space. There's lots of competitors out there. If there's something that they can do the same thing for a lower fee and a faster confirmation, people are going to start using that. And so here we have George saying Bitcoin needs a competitive fee market in the long run to sustain proof of work once the subsidies are gone. I am very happy that we have it now. The subsidies for Bitcoin don't run out for another 100 years. So he's worried about something that's going to happen more than 100 years from now, and intentionally advocating damaging Bitcoin's usability today because of a problem that might happen 100 plus years from now. That's ridiculous. And here he is again saying, higher fees may be just what is needed. Higher fees may be just what is needed if you want to motivate people to use something other than Bitcoin. And here he is referring to Adam Mack, the CEO of Blockstream, saying that he thinks that Adam and I agree that hitting the limit wouldn't be bad, but actually good for a young and immature market like Bitcoin fees. Well, we've seen the result of hitting the limit and the high fees that they create. The result has been people fleeing to altcoins and the rise of altcoins just exploding in popularity. We have Vladimir here saying, a mounting fee pressure resulting in a true fee market where transactions compete to get in blocks results in urgency to develop decentralized off-chain solutions. It turns out that that wasn't the case. What we've seen, this mounting fee pressure, it hasn't motivated people to develop decentralized off-chain solutions. It's motivated people to move into altcoins and centralized off-chain solutions. And here he is saying, I'm afraid increasing the block size will kick this can down the road and let people in large Bitcoin companies relax. Well, I have news for all of you. If you're a business or a user using Bitcoin, or someone around the world considering using Bitcoin, we want you to be able to relax. We want you to be able to set up your system, or set up your business, or set up your platform, and relax, because it's going to work, and it's going to work for years and decades to come, without you having to be terrified that you're going to have to redesign your entire system next week. So we want people to be able to relax. And these people have the exact wrong idea for what we should be advocating for the future of Bitcoin. So that brings us to, what can we do about it? We can continue doing what led to Bitcoin's success originally. We have an 8-year track record of what worked, and worked incredibly well to bring Bitcoin to where it is today. And that track record was letting the blocks grow from 5 kilobytes to 10 kilobytes to 100 kilobytes to half a megabyte to now a whole megabyte. Or more? Bro.
The Bitcoin network is not going to manage this block sizes that we're discussing. The Lightning network will be solid, and sidechain technology will be implemented. It's just
And so, for those of you that can't hear me say, he said Lightning Network and sidechains will solve everything. Well, the great part about that is that Bitcoin Cash can provide everybody that wants to do everything with Lightning Network, everything that wants to do sidechains. And still not disrupt the roadmap for Bitcoin that we had for the first 8 years, and let Bitcoin grow to where it is today. So it can do all your Lightning networks, all your sidechains, all of your other fun science projects, and it doesn't break the original Bitcoin that brought us to where we are today, which were low fees and fast confirmation times on-chain, and letting businesses relax and not have to scramble and worry about how they're going to implement sidechains and Lightning networks and all that other stuff. So Bitcoin Cash holds true to the original vision of Bitcoin, which was bigger blocks, lower fees, faster confirmations, more users, more nodes, and layer 2 scaling, much better than 1 megabyte or 2 megabyte Segwit Bitcoin can do. So, as Vitalik Buterin pointed out recently, that full blocks turns denial of service attacks on Bitcoin into theft attacks. If you're trying to close out a Lightning Network channel and the blocks are full, somebody can steal your funds. With Bitcoin Cash and bigger block size, they can't steal your funds. Everybody can close out their Lightning Network channels whenever they want to. And so for those of you that don't like Bitcoin Cash, don't use it. For those of you that don't like Bitcoin, the entire ethos of Bitcoin is to allow for permissionless innovation. So if you don't like Bitcoin Cash, if you don't like bigger blocks, if you don't like low fees, if you don't like fast confirmations, if you don't like more users and more nodes, and a convenient, fast, and easy, wonderful version of Bitcoin, if you don't like any of those things, don't use it. It's that simple. If you don't like the dollar, don't use it. If you don't like the RMB, don't use it. If you don't like Bitcoin Cash, don't use it. It's that simple. If you don't like it, don't use it. And it's clear, Bitcoin Cash's plan leads to better money, right? That's what this is all about, is building the world's best form of money that we've ever been able to build. Before the invention of the Bitcoin blockchain, this form of money wasn't available to human beings. So this is a new liberating technology for everybody on the planet. And so the small block and high fee policy has destroyed most of Bitcoin's first mover advantage. And that just breaks my heart because I've poured years and years of my life, every waking moment, to promoting this new form of money that liberates every single human being on the planet. If you don't want to be liberated, don't use it. And so now here's where we're at. You have to be prepared for a world filled with altcoins. Bitcoin Cash has been around, what, about 5 or 6 weeks now? The fact that it's already the third biggest market cap out of every single cryptocurrency in the world is a pretty strong indication that Bitcoin Cash has the right economic code to make it an incredibly useful form of money. And a few years ago, if you'd asked me, like, is anything going to surpass Bitcoin in adoption? I don't think so. It just had a light against start. But thanks to Blockstream and Core's intentional undermining of the economic code that led to Bitcoin's success, here we are. Look at these. They're catching up, and they're catching up fast. So if you don't have the economic code right, people aren't going to use your product. And so when you're figuring out which altcoins you want to use, or which coins you want to use, or which forms of money you want to use, choose the ones that have these characteristics. And if you undermine this ease to transport by making the fees high and the confirmations long and they're uncertain, people aren't going to use it. So that's me. I'm Roger Vera. I was the first person in the entire world to start investing in Bitcoin startups. I've been doing this full time. Don't break Bitcoin's underlying economic code. And if you don't like Bitcoin Cash, don't use it. If you don't like Ethereum, don't use it. If you don't like Monero Dash, take your pick. There's 1,001 cryptocurrencies to choose from. If you don't like them, don't use them. It's that simple. And focus on building the version of Bitcoin or the version of money that's the most useful to you, your life, and your businesses. And don't try and break other people's versions. Don't kick, sand in their face. If you don't like what somebody's doing, don't use that product. It's that simple. So that's where we're at today. I think that's about the end of my time, but I'm here all day. And thank you guys all for coming. And yeah, what an exciting time to be alive. Thank you guys.
Thank you very much. Thank you for sharing with us.